That was a nice move by Pipkins, taking it right to the rack himself. Wide open three, left wing, and it's good. Nylon, the dunk likes that, Matt.
A three from the right side, and it's good! The one, Pipkins, the man, yet again.
Hello and welcome to the Flex. I'm Matt St. Jean.
This is Joe.
And yep, Friars lost 81-67 at St. John's. This is a tough one to swallow. Friars up 11 at the break, 41-30. If you saw our halftime show, you saw us very happy with that first half. And then the wheels fell off, and oh boy, did they ever. 8 second-half turnovers. St. John scores 51 in the second frame, almost doubles up the Friars. It's 51-26 is the score in the second half. They pull away to get the season sweep of the Friars. Friars now fall to 12-12 on the season, 8-10 in conference play with just the one game against Villanova remaining. Jeff?
Well, that's the season right there. Any shot at the NCAA tournament is gone now, and I've ruled out winning the Big East tournament too, because quite honestly, this team is soft. There's talent up and down the roster, but they're soft. They're all soft. They don't care about winning. I mean, you tied the game at 60, and then you looked like a deflated balloon. This team is going to play in the NIT for the second time in 3 seasons, and quite honestly, if they make it. As an alumni, as a Friar fan, as a season ticket holder, I'm ashamed. I'm absolutely ashamed.
That was frustrating, and the most frustrating part about it is that the Friars played 25 minutes probably of really good basketball.
20.
I mean, at least 20. And I mean, they outplayed St. John's for long stretches of this game, like fully outplayed. And yeah, it's hard to put into words because we've done it so many times before. Every single thing that's been a problem came back up again. Rebounding, Friars got out rebounded. Turnovers, 8 turnovers in the second half. Role players not showing up. Horkler, only 2 points. Reeves, 9, 1 of 9 from beyond the arc. Breed, no points. Free throw line, Price, barely over 50% for the game. Didn't hit a 3-point shot in the second half. And most of all, like you said, soft, especially on the defensive end, allowing 51 points in the second half. It kind of felt like a combination of the game at Villanova and the game at Georgetown.
Yeah, it's a combination of those 2 games. You sprinkle in every single thing that's gone wrong this season, and that's what you get. I mean, even if we beat Villanova on Saturday, which is highly unlikely, we're going to finish conference play for the second time in 2 seasons under 500. We can say all we want about what happened last season with the 6-game win streak and breaking records in Big East Conference play. It's almost like you check that off, and it's like, all right, now we don't have to do anything. And I get it. There was COVID. There was a reduced preparation time. But David Duke, AJ Reeves, and Nate Watson, these guys have been in the program. It's not like we completely stripped the roster of everybody. You lost 5 seniors, fine. Emmett Holt, let's be honest, he didn't really get a ton of playing time. Fine. No. You really lose 4 impactful seniors, but you make that up with 3 guys that have been through the system. It shouldn't have been this bad of a year. It really shouldn't have.
No, and again, that's clear from the first half. The Friars were far and away the better team. And let's not forget, this is St. John's playing without Poch Alexander. They're down one of their starters. The guy's probably going to be freshman of the year in the conference. So they're down a good player. And the Friars made him pay. Nate Watson, 19 points, 9 of 13 from the floor. Should have had more shots. Definitely should have had more opportunities. But with what he did, he was great. 1 of 5 from the free throw line. That has to be better. But all in all, it's a good performance from Nate Watson. And Duke, again, not good at the free throw line. He only took 4 3-pointers. He made 2 of them. He was dynamite in the first half, and he just didn't have it in the second half. And still, 1 rebound away from a double-double.
Yeah, I think we took that Xavier win and we really glorified it and romanticized it to what we wanted and what we were hoping to see for the remainder of the season. And this game was a very, very cold wake up call. It's like someone splashes a bucket of water on you while you're in the middle of a nice dream. It's like
Yep.
you wake up, you realize that unless Horkler, Reeves, and Bynum all show up, that's it. You can't rely on Greg Gant to show up because he hasn't shown you anything all season. You can't rely on Bryson Goodine or Ed Croswell or the younger guys. So if your role players don't show up and Nate and Duke still have good nights, you're more than likely going to lose.
Yeah, and that's you go back to the state of the Friars. The one thing John Fanta and Kevin Farhar were both saying is this team has no depth, and I think that was incredibly apparent today. I mean, the Friars got double-digit scoring performances from 3 different guys. I mean, Bynum scored 13 as well off the bench, and still, Horkler and Reeves were not on their games, especially from beyond the arc. Combined 1 for 13 from deep, and that sinks you. And you add the other end of the floor. I mean, the defense was just atrocious. And there's a sequence late, probably around 3 minutes left. But no, it was 2 minutes left. It was basically when the Friars had the last opportunity to get a stop on defense and play the possession out before starting to foul. I'd say Johns drove and got an open look at the rim. And that happened all too often. I mean, that's the issue. The Friars don't have good paint defense, and it's the guards, forward side, it's everybody. The forwards don't do enough on the glass down low, and they don't body the big guys enough. At least they didn't in the second half. And the guards are just not playing good defense on guys that try to drive in. And it didn't really seem to matter which guards, forwards, or centers were out there. It was a problem with everybody in the second half.
Yeah, that's a great point. It doesn't matter if it was David Duke or Greg Gant, your best defender or your sloppiest defender. No one was defending well in the second half. I mean, what did we get? 51 points in the second half?
Yeah. You get 51
That's
points in the
gross.
half, you're going to lose 99 out of 100 times.
That's absolutely disgusting, especially because we had an 11-point halftime lead. 11.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who watched our halftime show, we were glowing.
Yeah. And it's like you can't blame the offense. The offense underperformed. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but you still put up 67 points on the road against a good team. And you probably would have, I mean, I think on a better shooting night, you're going to score in the mid 70s, high 70s, but that doesn't give you the win here. You gave up 81 points. St. John's is good. They're not that good. The Providence defense just needs to play better, and they had of late. You hold DePaul to 47 points. You hold Xavier to 68 points. They held UConn to 59 points. Where's that defense? Where'd that go? You had a week off to prepare for this. St. John's isn't doing anything different. Where'd that defense go?
Yeah. Really, you took a week off before Xavier, you meditated, you worked on your defense, and look what happened. I don't know what they did during this week off. Sure as hell wasn't the same as what they did the last week off.
Or if it was, they needed to do something different. Because, I mean, the mentality was not there in the second half. And that's the most frustrating part. If you look at some of these games, whether it be the loss at Xavier, the loss at Georgetown, the loss to Seton Hall, the loss at Villanova, you're seeing a team in the second half of the game, when the other team punches back, they don't counterpunch. And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, like you go to the first loss against St. John's, and despite the fact that the Friars were down by 17 points in the first half, they came back and took the lead in the second half. There was fire there. And obviously St. John's went on to win that game. It was a whole lot of too little, too late going on for the Friars. There was none of that tonight. None of that fire. And I mean, it felt like a lot of the losses we've seen. I mean, road loss at UConn included. The score was even somewhat similar. That was a 12-point loss. This is a 14-point loss. They've traded in the 1 or 2 point losses for double-digit point losses in a hurry.
Yeah. I mean, even if you go back and you look at those 1 or 2 point losses, like the double-digit point losses add up, and we still would be in a similar spot. The only difference would be our Big East tournament seeding, which quite honestly doesn't matter because we're playing Wednesday night.
Yeah, we're playing Wednesday night now, and you're going to have to win 4 in a row if you want to make the tournament. The game against Villanova on Saturday, I mean, it matters, and it's senior night. It's senior night. Like, it's going to matter to the players. But when it comes to the grand scheme of things, it doesn't change tournament hopes. Depending on, we're recording this as Villanova Creighton is playing. So by the time you're listening, you'll know the outcome. It may
Villanova's
not
up
matter
18.
for Villanova. What was that?
Villanova's up 18 with about 3 minutes left in the first half.
All right. Well, if that continues, then Villanova will clinch the Big East title, regular season title tonight. They're not playing for anything other than seeding on Saturday. I mean, and we'll talk about all that in our pregame episode. We'll talk about Villanova then, but it's frustrating to watch a team underperform the way this Friars team has, because there's clearly glimpses. They clearly play good basketball for long stretches in certain games of this season. They've beaten good teams, and they just disappear at times.
Yep. I'm going to take a second here and look at the big picture. I'm looking at the Big East standings right now. Georgetown has now risen over us because they have fewer losses. So we are now sitting fourth from the bottom, which is nice, down with Butler, Marquette, and DePaul. The real strength of the conference down there. And looking forward, I mean, realistically, we don't even know if this team can make it to the NIT yet. And if we do, I'll do the pregame show, but I'm not watching that game. I'm not watching the NIT game. And then looking ahead to next season, I think it's time to start swallowing the pill that David Duke and Nate Watson are probably gone, and we're probably looking at a very similar finish next year.
I will say, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I will take a moment of optimism here. Jared Bunham, by and large, had a very good game.
Yeah, he did.
And I mean, it didn't show in the assist totals, but 13 points. He was efficient scoring, and the team was noticeably different with him on the floor. He'll be back next year. That's a sure thing. So that is good. And Reeves will be back with his inconsistent play. And I mean, Duke, Horkler, and Watson are your question marks. But outside of that, and Gant had a good game tonight. For what Gant does, 4 rebounds, 8 points, no turnovers. As a role player, that's solid. It's just Gant and Horkler both did not play well enough at the defensive end of the floor.
If Gant's minutes are going to go up next season, he's really got to work on his dribble drive defense because he gets torched. Horkler too, but Gant, if we're looking at the future here, he's really got to work on that because you know that kid's in good shape.
Yeah, it's just it's a technique thing. It's not it's not about athleticism with him. That's never a question.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's just it's frustrating too, because you talked about, I mean, we said all season long, defense into offense. This podcast is going to keep going into the future as long as you listen, and Ed Cooley's the coach. That's what you're going to hear. That's how this team thrives. And as soon as the defense started giving things up early in the second half and stopped being able to get the stops, that's when the offense shriveled up. And that's not a surprise. This isn't some secret. The Providence offense is a lot better when they can play in transition with an open floor. I mean, you saw some of the wide open dunks Nate Watson was getting in that first half.
Yep.
And if you don't get stops, you can't do that. They didn't get stops, and also didn't hit a single 3-pointer in the second half. Again, why? I mean, the energy wasn't there. Why is the energy not there? Because you're not playing good defense. Fundamentals. Start with the defense. That's what this team is supposed to do, and at this point, it's frustrating.
It's really frustrating, Matt. This team was slated to finish third in the conference. Right now, it's not even looking like we're going to make it past Thursday of the Big East tournament. Really, I'm sitting here right now. I'm trying to wrap my head around what I want to say because, yes, last year was probably the best this team has been in a very long time with respect to Big East Conference play. But it took us a 6-game win streak at the end of the season to get there.
Yep.
2 years before that, it took us a run in the Big East tournament. And a year before that, it took us another 6-game win streak. So since Chris Dunn has left, we've watched these teams play inconsistently throughout the entirety of the season and then turn it on late. And in 2018, 2019, that didn't work. In 2020, 2021, or watching it unfold right now, it's not working. So yes, while it is nice to watch the team turn it on and get hot in February and March, it's a trend. And it is not a trend that is good for long-term sustainability. And we're seeing the effects of that now because on a much smaller scale, in the last 2 seasons, you didn't make the NCAA. Well, I guess you could have made the NCAA tournament. In the last 3 seasons, you're going to go 2 NIT berths and 1 potential NCAA berth.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not good for a program that just built a brand new facility, a multi-million-dollar facility, and who just signed the head coach to a lifetime contract. If you want to compete for championships, it starts in the beginning. You can't wait until the end.
You're spot on. And I think it's clear that when the team has been able to turn around and make these runs, it's when you have Kyron Cartwright or Lawan Pipkins, one of these guys who's a spark plug, who brings that energy on the floor and is commanding as a leader. And I love David Duke as a player. He's fantastic to watch. A great person with all the stuff he's done with the GoFundMe to help raise money. On the floor, he doesn't seem to have that X factor, that killer instinct to go finish a game and to go, I don't know. He's not like a Pipkins was, where he's just going to hit that cold-blooded shot late, or he's going to completely turn around the momentum and he's going to get the rest out of his teammates, the best out of his teammates. There isn't that leader on the floor right now for the Friars. And if they return the same lineup next year, you're going to have all of the same problems because you don't have that leadership on the floor. And honestly, Breed was that at some points. He didn't have it tonight. He looked lost mentally tonight. And you'd expect somebody else to step up. I was like, Cooley in his post-game press conference, he said the second half performance was, quote, disgusting and inexcusable. If you'll pardon my language, he followed that up and called it, quote, horseshit. Which, I mean, Cooley does not swear that often in his post-game press conferences. So says a lot about where he's at. And you look at the last week, a week ago, they're talking about joy playing with happiness. We're talking about that on the pregame show. That's gone.
Yeah, it was gone. I mean, you look at the faces of the guys in the final minute 30. It's like Greg Gant looked like he was lost. David Duke just looked straight up depressed. Watson looked pissed. Like, that's not fun.
Yeah.
The amount of touches that Watson gets in the paint on these kinds of nights, like, I look back at that Butler game that we lost. Watson was playing well, and then in the second half, we stopped giving it to him late in the game. We started settling for sloppy jump shots, like pull-up jump shots late in the shot clock. Like, why don't you work a play for him? He's at least going to get fouled, and then you can stop the clock and go to the line. But don't just hoist jump shots when you're not making them.
And the other part of it is they triple-teamed Nate Watson because they realized nobody's going to hit a jump shot. And when you play, the Friars play like they did against Xavier, that doesn't work because the guys hit their shots. But, man, what's the difference between Providence and Villanova right now? For the most part, game in, game out, Villanova hits their shots. Obviously, they didn't against Butler, but that's an anomaly. It doesn't matter which guys they put on the floor. At least 4 of those guys are going to consistently hit shots, and they're going to knock them down against you. If they got to go deep in their bench, somebody's going to do it. The Friars on a good night have 5 or 6 guys that'll hit shots, but it's only 2 consistently. No depth scoring.
Yeah,
and that's
just to make a point here before people start calling us hypocrites because, we're talking down on the offense. We're not saying the offense needs to be changed. It's the same offense, and obviously it works, but the offensive sets that you draw up are kind of mind-boggling. It's the same thing as a rotation. It doesn't really change, but the way you use it. So the way we actually manipulate the offense tonight was kind of mind-boggling. I'm fine with the offensive sets. I'm fine with the plays, but the order and distribution in which you use them, like if you're going to draw up a 3 for Greg Gant, but then you're not going to give Watson a look in the paint late in the second half when you need a quick bucket, I don't understand that. That's your highest percentage look, and instead of Reeves, who's been off the entire night, let's give it to him for a 3. I know you're trying to create a spark, but let's go with something that works.
And speaking of, one of the things I was shocked at as well, David Duke is the team's best 3-point shooter, and he only took 4 looks from beyond the arc. He hit 2 of them. So why aren't you trying to give him some looks late?
I don't know.
It's just, and then this is what this team is this year. It's failures in a lot of places. This team is decent basketball team with an incredibly high ceiling and a very low floor. They're wildly inconsistent.
We keep pushing the floor lower and lower, though, I'll tell you that. As low as the floor was, we got our shovels out.
Yeah. And now, I mean, St. John's is going to try to play their way back into the tournament right now. I mean, they swept the Friars for the first time in 6 years. So credit to them there. Mike Anderson's done a good job over there. I mean, it's a well-run team. They were down 11 at the half and came out and played with fire in the second half. And that's what you're accustomed to seeing from Friars teams.
Yeah, listen, I mean, all the credit in the world to Mike Anderson. I think he should be the Big East Coach of the Year. Even with all this anger after a loss, I'm going to stick to that. What he's done with this program. I mean, Chris Mullen left it in shackles, and he took it and he's risen it to a top 5 team in the conference. So really, really, really great job with what he's done. St. John's is going to rise to the top of the conference in the coming years. We're going to see the old St. John's from reconfiguration resurge. So really hats off to him. But as a New Yorker and growing up hearing St. John's say we're New York's team, when you've got teams like the Yankees and the Giants and the Knicks and the Rangers, I for some reason that always irritated me. Like as a little kid, I was always like, St. John's is not New York's team. So that has always left a sour taste in my mouth for any New Yorkers that can relate to that. But the fact that we got swept by them, it's like shocking because they're usually the team that's down with DePaul at the bottom. So really, 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 really mixed emotions tonight. A lot of it's anger, a lot of it's confusion, and a lot of it's disappointment. Like, quite honestly, like we went into the season, I didn't think we were going to run the league or run the table like we did last season. I thought we would compete. You know, we've got some competitors on this team. Duke and Reeves were highly recruited. Nate Watson's really developed. It's just, and you can only blame so much on preseason preparation because it's not like COVID restricted these guys from going out and getting shots up at their local courts or working out.
Yeah.
I mean, if Nate Watson couldn't work out in the offseason, he wouldn't have come into the program in the shape that he is in.
Yeah.
So that is an excuse. Is it a valid excuse? Absolutely. But it's not the excuse that you can take into February at this point.
No, and again, it's not. If the team came in and it was clear from the beginning that there was a lot of rust and that this wasn't a very good team, I don't think the frustration would be where it is. You'd look at the team and say, all right, this is a team that's just not ready to play right now because everybody knows what's going on in the world. But instead, it is a team that has dominated some opponents, looked very good against good teams, played really good stretches of basketball, and can't do it consistently. Cooley said, our players should be embarrassed with the way we played in the second half. And that's spot on.
You know what I like about that too is he's putting accountability on them because I'm not looking at Twitter right now, and I'm probably not going to until later on in the night. I can already hear, or not hear, but read the fire Ed Cooley tweets. This is not on Ed Cooley. Listen, some of the play calling in the second half where you're not giving Nate Watson a touch, that's on him. But when you look at the players, like if Greg Gant gets, let's say, I don't even know how many minutes he played, 15 to 20 minutes of playing time, stay with your man. But nope, I'm going to let him slip right by me. If Noah Horkler is on Julian Champagny, who's the Big East leading scorer, stay with him. Nope, I'm going to let him slip right by me. When you play defense, you have to have a drive, a mental drive. There's a reason why guys like Malik White can guard bigger people. He had the mental drive to do it. And if you're letting guys slip past you, you have no mental drive.
Yeah. No, and you're 100% right. You are 100% right with that. This team just doesn't have that dog in them. They don't have that next level they can get to consistently when they need it. They can't dig down deep and find it. And I hope it's not all the players, and some of them do it at least some of the time. And again, it's not, I don't want to dog these guys too much because they're not out there playing terrible basketball. They can't do everything right at the same time. And I'm not like from everything we've heard, it's not like these guys are struggling in practice or it's an ever concern in practice. It's something translating it into a game setting. And you know what? It's sports. That happens sometimes. So you live to play next year. That's where we're at. There's going to be talent coming back next year, and we'll just reset expectations and we'll see what happens. But this is not the year that we expected. I can tell you that much. Friars dropped from 69 to 75 on KenPom. They got jumped by St. John's. They basically swapped places after that game. So Friars are now down to 7th or 8th in the conference now in the KenPom rankings.
Yeah, Georgetown has jumped us in the rankings. And Matt, if I remember correctly, you and I predicted Georgetown to finish last in the conference.
Yeah.
So that should be a wake-up call for us on our preseason expectations.
And you know, I mean, if Mike Anderson isn't getting coach of the year, it's going to be Patrick Ewing, because what they've done at Georgetown is, I mean, that's also incredibly impressive. St. John's and Georgetown were not expected to be good, and both are slated right now to finish ahead of Providence, Marquette, Butler, and DePaul. So, I mean, credit those coaches for that. They've done a good job with those programs. But right now, this is a Providence team that, you know what, you're not playing for anything for the rest of the year. You're playing for fun. You're going to learn a lot about the mentality of this team. If guys check out, well, it's going to tell you a lot about their character and their future on the team. And for the guys who lock in and keep playing basketball, it's going to tell you a lot about who the leaders are going to be next year.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, I absolutely hate this phrase, but you got to build momentum into next season. I hate it. And you know, I really, I'm gonna be irritated the next 2 weeks. Especially with the narrative that's gonna come out of this program. You know, we're gonna be playing postseason basketball in March, and you know, this team has to get used to playing in March. Like, don't sugarcoat it. All the fan base knows, everyone in the country knows, you don't want to play in the NIT, you don't want to play in the CBIT, and quite frankly, that game, the home game against Arkansas in the NIT 2 seasons ago, no one came to play. The team did not look excited to be out there. So don't preach the narrative that you're excited to be playing in March. If you don't make the if you don't win the Big East championship, say it as it is. Say that's what we wanted. We'll play, but that's what we wanted. Don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything there. And I mean, you're playing for pride at this point. That's what this season's about. It's not about accolades or anything else. It's not about stats. It's pride. You're going out there because you just want to play basketball, especially for guys like Watson and Horkler. Then will come back next season. This is going to be the last time that they step on the floor at Alumni Hall, step on the floor at Madison Square Garden. Potentially, depending on what they do with their future careers, could be the last time they play organized basketball in a lot of ways. They may go pro. I mean, I think either of them could play overseas, but we'll see what happens. Certainly the last time they're going to play in any kind of environment like this again, and you'd like to see them step up and play with energy because of that. And I would expect their teammates to not let them down either.
Yeah. We can get more into the Saturday predictions tomorrow when we record, but if I'm any teammate that's anyone on the team that's not Horkler or Watson, I'm playing my tail off on Saturday for those guys, especially Watson, who has been your horse all season. All season, that kid has come and put his body on the line and played his guts out. If my teammates don't put it all out on the line for me on Saturday against the top team in the league, then they're not good teammates. I'll say that. You can come at me if you want. If those guys don't come to play on Saturday, they are bad teammates to Nate. I don't care if you win, just come to play.
Yeah, you gotta bring energy in that one. We'll talk about that one more on our pregame show. I think this is probably a good spot to wrap up. I think we said everything there is to say about this. It's frustrating, disappointing, and in some ways exactly what we expected from the team at this point in the season, given what we saw both the first half and the second half. I don't think either half of basketball really surprised anybody in Friartown. So this team is nothing if not consistent. They're consistently inconsistent. You know what you're going to get out of them with that. But what's not consistently inconsistent, what's always consistent, I'm just using that word way too much, is us here at The Flex. Terrible segue. But make sure that you are following us on Twitter at the Flex Hoops, because we will be consistently putting out episodes through the rest of this season into March Madness. We still love college basketball, Big East basketball, and the Friars, and we're going to follow it all the way through. So stay right here with us to make sure that you can hear our thoughts. Follow us wherever you are listening to this to make sure you're subscribed. You have notifications when new episodes come out. And as always, thank you for listening.